you know, we want to welcome everybody here.
Everything all at once?
Everything all at once.
It's honestly a sensation.
Aliens listen to it.
I want to welcome you guys to the show. We're super excited to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Heather and Leah from the corporate class are here today joining us to help us. Oh man, sorry, I'm a little distracted. Help us celebrate Black History Month.
Yes.
And share a little bit about their experience and what they do as the corporate class. And I'm just super excited that you guys are here.
Me too.
Thank you so much.
Before you guys came, everybody told me that you guys are the best.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like at least 3 or 4 people when I mentioned you were all like, these girls are excellent.
Oh, well, that's a
thank
lot for
you.
us to live up to, but
Oh, I'm sure.
appreciate it.
I'm sure you guys are gonna do great. So I had never heard of the corporate class before I got into podcasting and stuff. And originally, I thought you guys were just like a women's podcast. You know what I mean? Which is great, but you do so much more than that.
Yes.
oh yeah.
Yes, we do.
Yes. So,
Go ahead.
do you want to start with the cast?
Okay.
Sorry, Gideon is our studio manager, and
I heard.
she does her best to make sure that we stay on task.
Yeah.
And we apologize.
Totally got it. It's totally fine.
So tell me a little bit about what corporate class is all about, other than just a podcast, because it really is so much more to that.
Yeah, so we haven't even gotten to the podcast part, actually. We've been visiting other people's podcasts. So the corporate class is a professional development program that we created for young women of color in the Erie community ages 18 to 24, because we recognized that there was a gap where people needed mentorship and they need support when they're going into professional jobs, corporate jobs, even entrepreneurial spaces, and they need some guidance. And so we developed a corporate class to help support that.
Yeah, it's super cool that you guys do all that stuff, and it's definitely a need in area. Something wrong?
Are we live?
Oh, we're going.
Well, we don't do it.
We're not live. For the most part, we try not to, though. We want it to be
As smooth as possible.
smooth and succinct and good,
Yeah.
and just have a genuine experience talking and hanging out and
Yeah.
enjoying
So I'm
ourselves.
sorry, I'm probably on film, like looking at her, like, oh my god, what's happening?
No, I was too. So I was like, I can tell.
Sorry.
I think I was the only one that wasn't. I was like, oh, whatever. What are we
Missed that
doing
one.
here? You know,
Fine.
these 3 got something going on that I'm not privy to.
Yeah, I was
you
just-
know.
Don't tell Dave. Oh my gosh. So you guys mentor
Yes.
young women.
Yeah, we mentor them. We kind of help them, I think, discover their path. So some of these individuals are just coming out of university or just going into university, or, you know, starting their first jobs. And you get the job, but then what do you do when you get there? And then I
That's
think
scary.
it is scary, right? Because we were just talking about, we ask people to choose what they're going to be when they grow up at 18 years old. Who knows that? Like, who
Right.
has any idea what they want to do? And so certainly when you start off on that track, you don't know the next steps or what it looks like to be successful. Like, what does success look like?
Yeah, I think a lot of people deal with like imposter syndrome too once they're going into that job, especially a first job. Like, am I really this person? Can I do these things that these people are expecting of me?
And if I have questions, who do I ask?
Right.
Right? Because the thing is, I don't think this is specific to women of color. I think the difference with women of color is that there's no one to ask. I think that's the issue. But the idea is that, to your point, that, you know, you get put into this job, you get the job, fantastic, you land it, you're ready to go, hit the ground running.
Right.
You have the education. On paper, you look great, right? You walk in, and then you realize, wait a minute, there's goals, and there's, you know, well, how do I know what they are? And somebody might explain them to you high level, but what does that mean for me? Like, what does my contribution look like on a day-to-day basis, right?
To get that.
Right, exactly, to be meeting those goals and those objectives. And I think that's the part. I mean, who do you ask? You can't ask your boss.
Right.
Yeah, right. You look like an idiot.
Right.
Well, you gotta like you don't really get taught in college what is necessary to assimilate into a culture, a corporate culture.
Right.
You know, and every job's a little different. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a scary part.
And then we get, individuals in our day jobs, we've seen people come through to be interviewed. And again, like she said, they look good on paper, but then they start saying things in response to our questions. And it's like, that's not what the question was. And so we recognize, that people can use some development and help in that space. And everybody doesn't know how to get a mentor. Everybody doesn't know how to access that. And so we felt like if we created a space where women could come and get some of that coaching and assistance, we were here to offer it.
Yeah, that's super big because to your point, like a lot of people don't have like that kind of background where somebody's teaching, they have somebody to go to interview for a corporate job. Maybe they're the first person in their family that's graduated college. Maybe they've never had anybody that went through this kind of process before. So it's really great that you offer that service to people and make sure it's out there and available to them. How did you guys get into this? Like, what's your kind of background?
So my background is corporate. I've been in corporate America a long time, like over 20 years at this point. And I have been in IT. That's why I've been asking about your setup and stuff, because I'm impressed.
Oh, thank you.
Even though have an IT background, I couldn't do that stuff.
Oh my gosh, the barrier to entry is so low anymore. Anybody can do this stuff. And most of it has all been taught to me through YouTube. YouTube University.
Yeah, they can. It is YouTube University. Yeah, so I kind of came up through corporate. As you said, I was one of the first people in my family to kind of work in a corporate arena. I was the first to graduate from college, even though I went to college as an adult student. I didn't go at a traditional time, and so it took me longer to get my degree and everything like that. And so I also was trying to build my career as a non-degreed individual, and what does that look like, and what barriers did I have to overcome. And so some of that was very challenging, and it would have been helpful to have some of that information that got me along later on in my career, to have some of that guidance earlier in my career. But I didn't have anyone to go to. I didn't have anyone to ask. You just are working. And I think you often come into corporate arenas with that mentality. Like, I was a very studious student. And so you think, oh, I work hard, I'm gonna, get the next thing. But that is not how it works out in the real world. It's not like someone sees how hard you're working and then you get promoted. There's other things that go along with that.
Right. And I think that traditional education, a lot of times, it's very, very rigid and structured. Whereas corporate America, a lot of times you have to engage in your own creativity to get the desired results.
Absolutely.
Not only that, but I've had experiences where if you're really, really, really good at doing something, they don't necessarily want to move you into a different position.
That too.
You
become the trainer for that position.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. You become the mule in some, in some regards, in the sense that you work the hardest and they don't want to let go of that individual.
You're the golden goose.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And Heather, what about your background a little bit?
Yeah, so my background is actually in corporate Canada.
Cool.
So I have had.
Are you from Canada?
I am. I'm from Toronto.
Nice.
So my background comes from corporate Canada, and then I spent a little bit of time in China, just studying a little bit there, and then I came from there almost really right from that trip into the U.S. And so my transition, from corporate Canada really to corporate America was really interesting because they are both corporate atmospheres, but just different with how things flow, and the interactions and the networking just looks very different. So there was a learning curve for me coming here, and just kind of seeing how things are done here. I'm very blessed that the company that we work for is as close to as Canada's probably will be.
Yeah. Very
friendly, very kind and open, and all those great things, and wonderful. But it was a learning curve. So. That's my background. I was a psych major also. Woo! So for psych majors. I feel like I use it all the time.
Yeah. It's a lot.
With children, spouse, everybody.
Right. Right now, I feel like I'm trying to figure out how to apply my psych degree and make it valuable outside of the current field that I'm working in right now. And that has been a difficult, maybe not a difficult challenge, but definitely a challenge I have not been super successful at yet. and being able to adapt and change is so important.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
when you got your psych degree, did you originally plan on going into the mental health field or the psychology field?
Always. I always thought I was going to be doing something psychology based. And then, I mean, I've always been in management, so
Yeah.
it just never happened, right? But I recognized that there were different spaces and areas that I could use my education. And I think that that's where, I mean, when I'm coaching folks, I mean, I feel like we often use that. So previously, what we didn't get to share yet is that when Leah and I began this, we were both hiring supervisors, hiring managers at the time in our own space.
Right.
And so we had teams of people that we were, reported to us, direct reports. And, a lot of coaching conversations, a lot of, you can do this, you got this, you really do. I know you don't think you do, but you do. Look what you've done already, right? A lot of those conversations. And I feel like those are spaces where we really use, our psych, our psych stuff, it comes in, and it comes in handy. And some of the navigation of people and networking with people and how to build those relationships.
Right.
And, different kinds of relationships, categorizing the relationships, all those pieces I think are things that, come in handy with having some psych.
For sure. And how did you guys meet?
It's so bizarre.
It is
Good. I love
it is
that.
so random. So even though we worked at the same company for a while, we used to pass each other all the time in the cafeteria and whatnot, and just say, "Hey, like your shoes, like your hair, whatever," and keep it moving. And so deep in the pandemic, we were both participating in an affinity group, and she said something during the meeting that I was like, I really resonate with that. I really get what she's saying. And she happened to reach out to me and was like, we should do coffee sometime. And that, let's say, it was like July. We didn't do coffee until October. So it was like October.
That'll happen.
Yeah, that's how that goes. Yeah.
But you guys did actually do it, which is so,
Finally. Yeah.
I feel like unusual, because a lot of times I'm like, oh yeah, we should catch up, and then
Yes.
it just never happens.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so it was October 2020. So it was the worst time to do coffee. There was like
No
no
way.
napkins. There were like 2 tables.
Oh.
Essentially, everybody was masked up, and we were in there almost like afraid to take off our masks. Like, can we take our masks off? Are they going to be angry with us? We didn't know what to do. And it was the longest coffee date ever. It was 5 hours.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
That's like,
Yeah.
We thought they were going to put us out. We were there for so long, but we were bonding over, the same things that we've kind of been discussing here. Like, what does great look like, and how do we know that, we've gotten there, and what guidance do we have if we need any? And so it was more kind of a bonding moment in us discussing different things that we had experienced, or, giving each other tips and some guidance.
Sure.
And then it fell off. Like, it was that coffee date, and then nothing until
we both got picked coincidentally or not coincidentally, for a fellowship. With the company we work with, they picked us for this fellowship. It was the National African American Women's Leadership Association
Awesome.
Institute. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Sorry. And we got picked for this fellowship. We are doing the fellowship, and at the end, and this fellowship, just so you know, is women of color from all over the U.S., from Fortune 100 to Fortune 500 companies in top positions and whatever leadership positions they're in. So
So a pretty big deal.
it was a big
Big
deal.
deal.
It was nice to be able to meet, from states that some of them I've never even been to. I've been to 22 states in the U.S., but I had never been to a lot of those states that they were from. And I was like, what is it like over there?
Yeah.
Tell me about it. So yeah, one of our projects, our main project at the end, because this was a 6-month intensive, but at the end, we were tasked with doing something for the community. And a lot of our peers did things like an art day with like the inner city youth or something like that, or like a diaper drive.
drives.
And there was nothing wrong with any of those things. Like, they were all great. Like, that's amazing. But we had already talked about something.
Yeah.
Right? And so I could almost feel her like staring at me through Zoom. Like, and
This is our chance.
right, this is our thing,
This
right.
is us.
This is our opportunity to give back. And so it was so interesting, because they're like, well, you can work by yourself or with a partner. And I already knew I was picked. She probably knew she was picked too, because this was a thing. We were doing this thing. And as soon as we got off the phone, they said, go and talk about what you want to do. We're like, this is it. We can do this. We can give back. This is going to be our thing. So we started planning like immediately, and we took it seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, we were nights.
Working nights,
Days,
late nights.
late
I mean, we were up till 4 a.m. on
Working.
a school night, right? Trying to get a curriculum created and things like that to offer this curriculum in the summer before, of course, our intensive ended with our leadership program, so that we would be able to give some results from that. And so we had to like do scouting and recruiting and all of that in a very short window of time. But as we were going out having these conversations, looking for young women to participate, everyone was like, the reception was so positive, and everybody kept saying, oh, this is so necessary, and this is so needed, and this is so awesome. So by the time we kind of got to the end and had some time to kind of stop and think about what we had accomplished over that like 6 to 8 weeks, we really thought, okay, I think we have a business model on our hands. And so we then began to pivot in that direction, and I think it kind of grew legs and it started running essentially.
It was taking off without us.
And we were just
Whether you could do
on.
anything to stop it or
Yes.
not.
And I mean, but it really has been, it's been great. I mean, very responsive, and we've gotten to meet a lot of great people who, you know, we wouldn't have had the opportunity to, and, you know, impact some lives and things like that in the process. And we're not even a year in. So we're
It's amazing.
excited about
So how long has corporate class like actually been around?
September officially.
Oh my gosh. We were born around the same time.
Around the same time.
Okay.
We were,
Yeah.
Everything at Once was born like a month before
Yeah.
you guys.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we launched our community service project over the summer, so like through July, early August, and then that wrapped up mid-August, and then we officially went into business September 1st. And so
Amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So cool. And you're clearly meeting such a big demand in our city. This project was local, yeah?
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. This was all about how we could serve the space where we live, and it doesn't mean that it won't grow outside of the space that we live right now. But we were so passionate about what was happening here. You know, obviously I'm not from here, but I live here now.
Right.
You know, so how important is it to make sure that, you know, we are meeting the needs right here where we are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a huge need here. I mean, I know at least a couple years back, like the 16501 area code is the poorest for cities in the country. And, you know, in some of the work that I've done, there's such a disproportionate amount of people in this city that struggle with things like poverty and you know, living in low socioeconomic status. So it's a huge thing to provide this kind of service,
Right.
to kind of be like a light post, you know, for people to go towards to get the help to grow and thrive.
Yeah, and I think the other part about that is seeing others. I mean, since our target is young women of color, seeing others who look like you and who have, you know, been through some of that. I mean, I am a Erie native. I grew up in this Erie city. I went to Erie City schools, public schools, and so, and you know, here I am. If I can do this, let me
Right.
show you how you can do this as well. And I didn't have the backing and the support necessarily in the same sense, you know, of having someone show me the ropes, right? And my mother obviously gave me the best guidance that she could, and the rest you pick it up along the way.
Right.
I mean, I'm an English major, but
Me
So
too.
safe.
Me too.
Wow, this is so weird.
Yeah.
What is
I am an English major.
yeah, and then I
my
worked
God.
in IT.
That's funny.
So funny. I wasn't
my God.
expecting that. That's so funny. So yeah, but I was able to, you know, make a career somewhere in another space, right? For the last 20 years, I've been working in IT. So it's possible, but sometimes you need to see representation of
Absolutely.
what that looks like.
And a little bit of hard-earned shared experience
Absolutely.
goes such a long way. And I think that like offering this service, a lot of people may not even think about it until it's available to them, that this might be something that they need, you know?
100%. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? So there are folks, and it's funny, even when we talk to people, we've had so many people come up to us and be like, oh, well, I already have a job. Like, I'm already in my job. How is it? Right? Right? Because when you want to move to the next level, it's difficult if you don't know how to navigate. How do you advocate for yourself, right? What does that look and sound like, right? When it's time for a raise, do you have to wait till the end of the year? What if in the middle of the year you feel like I've done a damn good job here and I feel like we need to talk about that, right? What does that sound like and look like, right? Can you do that? Can you not, right? So a lot of those pieces, because we've been through a lot of that, and we do a lot of that in our day jobs. It's helpful, I think, and have done in our previous jobs. It's helpful, I think, for to hear it from people who've done it, and people who can help kind of navigate that space.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I
think that like a first person real world experience is so much more valuable than what I could read on the internet or, left to my own devices.
Definitely.
Something very relatable, I think, about it.
For sure.
So, like, you can actually put an actual face, and if you have follow-up questions,
yeah,
shoot us
you can
an
ask
email.
more.
Exactly, right? It's not like, well, there's the article, and go do with it what you will. And not saying that we don't all use that in some way, but we are very accessible. We are right here in the community, and as a part of our program, it's not kind of like we're like, oh, well, thank you for taking the program. When and done, we are looking, as we culminate at the end of the 4 weeks, we hold a community mixer to introduce the young women who participated to community leaders and other entrepreneurs in the Erie area so that they can put those networking skills to use and land internships or, volunteer opportunities, because all of that has meaning when you're trying to get your foot in the door somewhere or demonstrate that you're capable, or that you can lead things. And so we want to see them go on and continue to, we check in on our people to see how they're doing and everything like that. So this isn't kind of like all right, come take our class and we, stamped you and you're
You're
gone.
free, you're gone. Yeah.
We're really two women who are stretched very thin, but really recognize that we want to support our community.
You guys seem very emotionally invested in this, which is great. You know what I mean?
We are. I'll tell you, when we did our community service project presentation, there was no dry eyes in the room.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, we could hardly get through our presentation because we didn't even recognize, I don't think, the magnitude of what we had completed until after we did it. Like, we were looking at the videos and everything once it was all put together. We get a content creator. Now she's our content creator.
She's amazing, by the way.
Thank
oh my
you.
god, I love her. Yeah.
She's pretty awesome.
We love her
She's
too.
helping us, kind of put things together so they look nice for our presentation. And when we looked at everything, all of the things, it was just so much, and we didn't even realize that. Like, oh my gosh, it was a lot of stuff we've been doing over the past few months. We've been really busy.
And the women in our class, they were so good. We were all very supportive of everybody and, applauding them on the efforts that they did, but they were so supportive, and we were getting messages already like, can you bring this to other cities? Who were like,
wow.
We don't know. We just did it.
Right.
Yeah, right. We're just getting started here.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. And what kind of things did you work on? Do you mind talking about what you worked on with the class? Like, what are some of the big things that you recognized were issues for people?
There's so many. So many. High level.
Branding.
Yeah, that was a big one. Branding and rebranding. That's one. Oftentimes, and we talked about this when we were on the Radius podcast too, because that was one of the questions.
I did see that one.
Yeah, that was one of the questions that Liam had asked us. Like, if we could talk about one thing, what would it be?
Yeah.
And our things were different, which is really funny because I don't know what we would do. Then we'd have to split it, right? We only had one class, but mine was branding, because it's so important to brand yourself well and to create a good brand for yourself. Because if you're asking somebody to be an ally for you, if you're wanting somebody to rally beside you in these corporate and professional and entrepreneurial settings, it means that you need to have the right brand,
right?
Because they're putting their name on you.
Yeah, and when you say brand, like, you don't mean like Nike or anything like that.
Kind of.
Yeah, you're right. But more of on a personal level.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
your personal brand. But when you think about Nike, I mean, think about it. I mean, they have a very specific way that they do things.
Sure.
At Nike, certain things just aren't they're not gonna go because they're just not a part of the branding, right? And the same for us as people. We have to really think about that. What does your brand look like? What is associated with your brand?
What does it represent?
Right.
Because when you think Nike, you think quality, you think a long history, right? And so it's very recognizable. And it's not about being noticed, but if you are, what are you being noticed for?
It's it's like that old adage, like dress for the job you want, not the one that you have.
Right.
And I've been doing that since I had an entry level job.
Right.
And that's important because you got to be feeling yourself, and like if you can't put that work into like the self, how are you gonna progress?
Absolutely. Presentation is important.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so if you don't believe in you, how do you get other people to believe in you?
Exactly.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That energy is so transferable. When you walk into a space, when you enter a space, right? I mean, you fill that space with who you are, and if who you are is not confident, it's really difficult to translate that to other folks and help them to feel confident about what you bring to the table.
Do you think that's more important than like qualifications on paper from like the work you've done with women?
You mean the
way that you the confidence you have in yourself? Like if it was someone with lower qualifications or not as many in comparison to someone who checks all the bullet points, but they're just kind of not super confident.
They don't have that swagger.
They don't have the swagger. They're not as sure of themselves, even though they got everything that you need. Who wins out in that situation?
It's funny that you asked this. I just saw a post. I want to say, I don't remember if it was earlier today or yesterday, but Gary V, you're familiar with him?
Yes, Gary V.
So, and the post was something about you could have A+ qualifications, but basically have a horrible personality, and then a person with B.C. qualifications might have a great personality. And personality in the sense of, for me, what is emotional intelligence? When we talk about how you represent yourself, if you are able to have a higher level, I may not be a psych major, but emotional intelligence plays a very big part in how you navigate these spaces with others, right? Can you pick up on the energy in the room? Do you know how to pivot? Do you know how to contain your own emotions, right? And so even though someone may not be a 4.0 or whatever it might be and have a stellar track record, it's really about saying, well, this is what you have done and you have potential, and let us show you how you can capitalize on the potential that you have. Let me show you how to capitalize on that C, right? And maybe turn that into a A- even, so it really isn't always about the swagger that someone has. And I'll say in the roles that I've been in terms of hiring, sometimes I think we were talking earlier about the cultural fit when you don't know about a culture fit when you're coming out of college and what that's like when you're going into any organization. Sometimes your culture fit, the way you are, doesn't fit in a particular culture. Think of the city of Erie. If someone came here and they were very Wall Street driven, right? High energy, go, they probably would be very unhappy here, and they would probably anger a lot of people because the culture of our city is a little more relaxed, a little more laid back, right? And a little bit different. So
no, I'm just smiling so big because the last time I was in New York, I was coming up from the subway. This woman was coming down, and I don't move fast, but I'll move slow. But I went one way, she went the same way. We were dancing, trying, and she was just get out of my way, and I'm like, okay, well, not used to that, She was beautiful, dressed very professional, but it was I'm like, well, this is New York, so yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, right. But you plop her in Erie, she's going to be very angry, and she's probably going to hurt some feelings, right? But she could be excellent at what she does, but you have to be able to acclimate to your environments, right? And understand when the environment isn't for you, right?
Right. And we just had Dale he's the chairperson of the Erie County Gaming and Revenue Authority, and he was talking about how important it is to have a team behind you, because if you already know everybody else or everybody's acting or thinking like you, then why do you need a team? You know, we need that outside perspective and that outside group to come together. What up, Gideon? Sorry, she likes to join us on the podcast.
Hey, girl. So yeah, huge. I think that the importance of having a team around you is so big,
And being able to use and utilize that team,
yes.
interact well, and function as a team.
Accessible people with different skill sets is huge. Yeah, I feel like that's invaluable. And it's funny, I was telling my sister about this, like, as you know, we started to kind of grow and kind of move forward, I was saying that we really need to start making sure that we have all of our checks and balances, right? So physically, if we need to get trainers, then we need to get trainers so that we can make sure that physically we're in a good space, not because we want to look amazing, but because we want to be able to last however long this thing is going to ride out for, right? Mm-hmm. And we got kids. We want to, you know, we want to be
run with them
fully functional, right? And then, you know, mentally, we want to make sure that we are able to tap into folks who are, you know, at a stage mentally that we're not at, right?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, emotionally, spiritually, you know, whoever we're using for guidance for those spaces, right? But tapping into that in all aspects to make sure that we are well-rounded as individuals. I think oftentimes we like to tap into one space but don't really remember that we need to be well-rounded individuals. And in order to do that, it means that we got to make sure that we're using all of our available resources, you know, to do that. It's important.
Definitely. Do you guys have any sort of like culture shock when it comes to working with these young women? Because I feel like, at least for me, I mean, I'm 33 years old, and when I interact with a lot of younger people, a lot of times I'm like, wait a minute, hold on a second. Like, I try to stay up on like my slangs and my verbiage and stuff like that, like no cap, on God, all that stuff. But
I don't do that.
But I still feel like there's a very big difference culturally between even like my age and younger people.
And just to add on that super quick, like when I talk to younger people, I don't try to keep up with the slang, but it's hard for me sometimes to not be like the old, like, I'm 34, I'm only a year older than him, but to be like the old dude, like, oh, when I was 21, this is the mistake I made. And it's like, shut up, grandpa, you know?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think that was an eye-opener for us is when we were doing our community service project and we were talking to the young ladies who were participating, we started having a conversation about social media, and they were both like, we don't use social media. Excuse me?
That's supposed to be such a big thing, right?
Like, you think that everyone is tuned into social media at this point, but they were like, oh, we're not on Instagram. And so then that made us start thinking of different things about the conversations that we're having. And then as we, you know, pivoted to a business model, how are we marketing? How do we reach people? Because they're not all on social media. They're not all, you know, looking and things like that. So sometimes that's, I think, a little bit of a generational shock that happens. I'll say I'm fortunate in the fact that the job that I've been doing for the last few years, I have been working primarily with people who are in university or just, you know, graduated. And so they tend to not think that I am the age that I am, which I'm not naming right now.
I would never ask that.
But as I said,
believe it.
I would.
had a very
I would say that you guys are our age, if I were going to guess.
Right, but
So
like,
kind.
yeah, very kind. And so, as I said, I'm coming up on a big anniversary, work anniversary, right? And so when my employees would find that out, they would, what? Like, what are you saying? Because I relate to them. I try to meet them where they are. I don't try to fit in and be like them, right? But I try to have that relatable connection and allow them to also educate me. Like, I'm not coming in as the expert all the time. Sometimes, you know, I can be sensei, but then sometimes you can teach me something different as well. And then that, you know, helps inform me and inform the way I continue to move forward when I engage with other people.
Right. And having that give and take in any relationship, I think, is so important. Like, if everything's just so unbalanced, it's hard to maintain that relationship or have it be mutually beneficial.
Absolutely. And I think we want that for the corporate class as
Yeah.
well, is, we're here offering our services and our experience to help uplift others, but we also want feedback. Like, do you, what really did you take away from this, and what did you find beneficial, or what else do you feel like would be helpful? And it's awesome. One of the girls who was in our community service project, when it ended, she said, "Oh, I would take this again." Absolutely. And so we were like, well, we need like feedback.
Yeah, right.
That's
like
awesome.
a little bit of critical feedback.
A little bit, right? But no, that was awesome.
That's so interesting. I feel like that's such a big misconceived notion that like the Zoomer generation is so attached to their phone and social media, and just hearing you guys, because I've seen that same thing, these kids aren't on Facebook or on Instagram or whatever, maybe they do TikTok or YouTube, but it's everybody just has that preconceived notion of them just being super invested into the digital world.
Yeah, and I think it's us, right? But like, they're like on Snapchat.
Yeah.
And it's so random.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't even have that app.
no. And I felt that it lasted like 5 minutes or something like that.
I was like, we're still doing that?
yeah.
Yeah.
But that'll be like the one thing that they do have that they use to communicate with their friends. But we also want to say, okay, you don't have a Snapchat, but here's why you need a LinkedIn, right? And so we're trying to kind of broaden their horizons about certain things and help them understand the value in that thing. So it's great. If you're not on social media, Gideon is going to scare the life out of
I'm
you.
sorry.
Yeah,
No,
that
it's
one
fine.
kind of
She's
scares me.
she's uncontrollable. She's the alpha
No,
of the
clearly.
house
She
and does what
runs-
she wants.
She runs this place.
That's why she's the studio manager.
No, clearly she runs this place.
She's not as give and take as you guys are. when it's time to throw down the law, she's just all about it.
I'm
So
so interested in what she's looking at.
she's got her eye on something over there. I don't know what exactly it is, but she's very much watching something. So do you guys have talked a lot about working with people in university or just graduating college. What about the people that are not quite there yet? Like do you work with high school grads and stuff like that?
So we are beginning to kind of dabble into that space now, and I will tell you again, it's so interesting because it's based on the feedback that we're getting. So we have heard so much of, oh my gosh, you're not in the schools? You need to come to our school. And so I think we're now at the space where we're having to have this conversation because it's not something that we were really doing. We were really pretty specific about our age range of the 18, I'm going to say 18 and above, not 18 to 24, but you know what I mean? But we were very specific about that 18-year-old kind of being the minimum.
Right.
But recognizing that there are young women that, we could help and that might benefit, and there are some spaces that might benefit from having us. I mean, we're in this to serve. We're in this to serve. And so if that is where we're needed, we're open to it. So
Cool.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that could be not that what you like very influential and life-changing for a lot of people if they're introduced to this at an earlier age, maybe help them develop those goals and be able to see life beyond just high school, or why they should go to college, or why they should go advance their education in whatever particular field that they find interesting.
Yeah, and I think to that point, one of the things that I've been thinking about as we've been having these conversations about the younger set is when I was thinking of going to college, even though I ended up postponing it, and I think I'm grateful that I did, but I was going with the intention of I'm just going to go and do the thing I've always done, right? And we can help them have that exposure of this is how you make it valuable, not just in going and, getting A's and B's or whatnot and getting to the end. But this is some other things that you can do that will look really good on your resume. And it may not take as much effort as you think, but this is how it can serve you.
Go ahead, Dave.
So, it seems like there's a lot of pushback on education right now, like going to college and stuff. Have you encountered that at all in your work since you've started this?
So
I think we have. I think we have heard, you don't necessarily need it. And here's the thing. I think that our perspective is really that whatever the decision is, we are here to support whatever that is. We're not pushing you one direction or the other. It's whatever you want to do. I mean, what we offer is consultation and coaching for the spaces of entrepreneurial services, like in the entrepreneurial sector. We do professional and then we do corporate, right? Okay. So we want you to be great wherever you find yourself, right? But you have to understand and kind of come to the table knowing kind of what you want to do, have an idea of what you want to do. So if university is the area that you want to, venture off into, let's talk about that. What are some great schools that are offering some great scholarships? Let's look at that, right? Where can we get those? And then if the other opportunity for you is maybe that you don't want to go to post-secondary, and maybe you want to find a great professional job that might pay for your post-secondary,
right?
Because that's a thing that people don't often talk about. Let's talk about that. What are some of those employers? Right?
Absolutely. And that's so big on opening those doors to after you graduate, is having like a starting or entry level job that you can get with a high school diploma in that particular field that you're working towards.
That was my story. Honestly, I happened to fall into IT related jobs out of high school when, and I want to share the story with them that if they're not choosing that path, and it's probably a little bit different now, I recognize, but it's a grind. It certainly is. I think I feel like stomp the pavement harder to make those strides, but I managed to get in without a degree, even though I was often told that I wouldn't get certain opportunities because I didn't have one, and that was very frustrating. But once I got into that organization, I was able to they paid for 95% of my college education, right? And so after that, I had experience, I had the paper. I mean, at some point, people ask me, well, you're building your career while you're going to school. Do you really need to finish? And I wanted to finish because for me personally, I never wanted someone to be able to tell me that I couldn't have an opportunity because I didn't have this piece of paper. And that was a choice that I made myself. But I will also share that information with students in our class, right? I'm just letting you know that this is what you might face. It's completely up to you how you choose to, handle this information and what you choose to do with that. But let me tell you what it's like, from my perspective and my experience.
Yeah. Okay. And I think that having that is really important and real to people, especially I went to school as an adult. I went to school out of high school and made tons of mistakes and had no idea what I was doing, and it took till I was 26 to actually go back and then finally finish and graduate. And having that life experience was very important, but it would have been much easier if I could have came and talked to somebody who had had that life experience that could share it with me instead. And a lot of times I feel like I have a hard time accepting a teacher. You know what I mean? And looking at and being like, why does this person know more than me? You know what I mean? Have you guys had any difficulties with that?
Like people challenging us in that
Yeah.
space? No. And I think the reason is because, well, a couple things. Number one is we come with 35 years of experience combined. That's
Absolutely.
Number one.
You guys definitely have the qualifications to have the experience.
So that's number one. But the other thing is, to Leah's point earlier, when we share, we really try not to be the expert all the time. We really try to be, meet people where they're at, and hear from them and listen to them. And sometimes, we have a workbook curriculum for our Pinnacle Leader program, but sometimes we got to put the book aside for a minute and be like, tell me about what's going on. Like, what's going on with you? Like, what are some of the goals, right? And really kind of get, down on their level and have the conversation, right? And meet them where they are. And I think our approach is what has led us to having not had those types of conversations.
Yeah.
We're not coming as the dictators. We have kids. We recognize these are not our children. These are grown adults, right? Young adults and older adults, right? Who deserve respect and who are making choices for their lives and who are, at a pivotal place in their life, and we're here just to help as best we can.
We're a part of the journey. And I think for me, I've always said I am appreciative and grateful of people who want to permit me to be a part of that journey and have even a seed of input on what could, direct them in their lives.
And I think that, just piggybacking off of what you said, Tony, I think something like this, obviously, it has so many incredible things going on, but this program this business has such merit. When I got out of school, it wasn't so much like the classes that got me going into college. It was the incredible flood of independence, you know, going from like, you know, being under my parents' watch. They were very, you know, pretty strict. And then like you go to high school and, you know, they care if you show up. You know, you go to college, you don't go to classes. The professor's just like, whatever, you know, you don't want to do this. And so for me, you know, I'd be interested, like, if there was like a class like this offered, or not class, like a consultation offered, like, to just kind of help well round yourself, because I think that's one of the toughest things about going from just being a kid to an adult like that, is you don't get taught how to be a self-starter. You don't get taught how to use your resources. It's just like, all right, go find a job or go to school and do the exact same thing, but you don't have anyone watching over your shoulder.
It's not the same.
It's not the same.
Yeah, it's exactly what we talk about when we're like, okay, go be great. Well, wait, what does great look like? Is anyone to ask? There's nobody. You're on your own.
Figure it out.
Right, figure it out. Yeah. No, that's a great point. And I think that you're right. When people are going into, I remember having the same struggle, and I was an adult at university, and I was an older, well, I was an adult, so I was older. But the kids that were there were like 18 and 19, and they would come in their pajamas late to class.
None of them are
with the cookie in the mouth. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I don't know who's paying for their education, but I know I'm paying for mine, like actually out of my pocket. So I'm going to be here on time. I was there 15 minutes early every morning for my 8 o'clock class.
I'm going to ask questions.
Ready to go.
It was.
Yeah.
And it was a completely different experience for me, because again, I felt like I was a super adult, right? And coming in, they didn't think that, and I thought my clothes were a dead giveaway, because I would be going to class like during the middle of the day, so I would leave a meeting or something and go on my lunch break, or I would go right after work. But because I'm having to make extra time to do this, I was the studious of students, right? And so I was like, hand is always right.
I feel like the other students hated me, but the professors loved me.
And that's what I thought. But then I later kept finding out that the students didn't even realize that I wasn't like one of them. They just thought that I was like a well-dressed 19, 20-year-old, which was hilarious. But again, we have these conversations with individuals that they, you know, are in university, and that's one like life change there, right? Like suddenly no one cares, and you have all this freedom and to make these decisions. But then they shift into this work area, right? Like, so now they're in a professional office, and there are these expectations, and they don't even know how to shift out of the I'm staying up till 2 a.m., right? Because I have this independence and this freedom. So now I'm staying up till 2 a.m., but I have to get up for work at 6 a.m. And so it's another shift that they're not acclimated to. And so we just want to help people ease into that, I guess, as best possible.
Do you guys focus on like positive decision-making skills and stuff like that with your clients or students?
So we do talk a lot about, I don't think we call it that, but we do talk about the idea of, you know, the consequences that happen when we don't make the right decisions. But then we also talk, because these are adults, right? But we also talk to them about, you know, sequentially doing things, being very intentional about the decisions that you're making, right? So to Leah's point, you know, you have work at 8 a.m. in the morning. You have to be on time for that, like every day. That's a thing. And if you're not, bad things happen. Right? Let's talk about what some of those bad things could be. Okay. Right. And then let's talk about what being intentional looks like. So work starts at 8. It means not showing up to work at 8. Like you shouldn't be slamming the car door at 7:59 and, you know, like
running up to the desk.
Right. Sweaty, and don't do that. Right. Like, right. So what does that look like for time management for folks who just haven't maybe been able to be privy to somebody with great time management, you know, overseeing them and helping them as parents even. I know for me, my parents, they might see this, but they're late. Okay? They're late. So, you know, naturally, what am I? Late, right? So this is something that I do not want to pass on to the next generation. I said as an adult, I'm going to work on this. But,
how's that going?
You know, I'm working on it.
I feel that.
What time did I get here? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so, you know, but I guess what I'm saying is, like, you know, you have to be able to work backwards, right? You know, you got to be somewhere at 8. Give yourself 15 minutes. You want to show up 15 minutes early, 7:45. What time do you have to wake up? What time do you have to brush your teeth? And I mean, I've done this even like in our day job, right? Like had employees, and not even this job, like previous to this job that I have now, right? Employees they're late, and I want to talk with you about why you're late and why it's important for you to be on time. Let's have that conversation, right? This is your professional job. This is your brand, right? So let's talk about that, right? And what has happened? The likelihood is that the person wasn't always late, which they probably weren't. That's why they have a job. Something has happened and pivoted, and they were not able to pivot with it. And often it's young people who, one girl's like, I got a puppy. And I'm like, oh. She's like, yeah, and now the puppy, I gotta take it out, and now it's like messed up my whole routine, and she couldn't pivot.
Yeah.
And I said, well, here's what I think we should do. Let's write out your morning, right? This is an adult, a young adult though. Let's write out your morning. So we wrote it out. Well, the fact of the matter is she's doing the same thing she was doing before she had the dog. I'm like, you gotta
Switch that up.
you gotta make space for the dog.
Right.
It's not on here. How come it's not on here? Right? It's 15 minutes of your morning, and that's why you're 15 minutes late.
Yeah.
Right? So it's the little things like that, to your point, it just changes, and nobody helps you kind of pivot through those spaces. And so we do talk about some of that, time management and those types of things as well in our different classes and workshops that we do.
And with the populations that I work with at my current job, I feel like that is such a difficult task that so many people are lacking in, especially in this particular population that I'm with. They'll be missing appointments, they'll be getting in trouble, they'll be facing awful consequences because they are not, nobody ever showed them how to have a calendar or a planner or a schedule or make alarms or write notes for themselves to remember to do the things that they need to do. And having somebody that's able to, your clientele's obviously a little bit more put together because they've gone to school or are going to school, graduated, all of those things, but that time management is such a critical role on so many levels that beyond just showing up to work. If you're not doing that, you can face more than just problems at work, problems at home, problems with your family, problems with paying bills, financially, everything. It just really is a skill that encompasses so many aspects of
And I
life.
appreciate what you said. It's a skill, right? And it's not something that's innate in all of us. And so some people don't know, where to get that from. If they haven't seen that in their homes, or if they haven't been held to that or accountable for that previously, well, we're here to have the conversation, obviously giving you support, but sometimes it's tough love, I think, too, about, okay, well, here's your options, but this is what it could look like if you stay on the track that you're on.
And I think, it's so important, and you brought it up earlier about being relatable, because for some people, the future's never been anything but bleak, from the very beginning. So if you don't have any idea what success looks like, you go into adulthood, how are you ever going to plan to be successful, if you've never seen it, if you've never been showed it?
And one thing that I feel like it's my quote, and I say it's mine because I don't know. I feel
No one
like
can tell her
I feel like I made it. I don't recall seeing it anywhere. But what success looks like to you and what success is for you are two different things, right? So what successful Heather is one thing, but I can be successful and not be like Heather, right? And so it completely is a different application of, you may not have seen it, but you have to have a vision of what success is. And everybody does it, compares themselves to the Joneses or whatever that might be, right? But that's the Joneses' success. You could still be successful, but it's about giving yourself credit and grace even to understand that your success doesn't have to look like theirs.
Right.
And we work on that with the women too, talking about what does that look like for you. That's something that we cover in our class, Pinnacle Leader, and that we do for individuals as we're working consultatively with them as well. What does that look like for you? What is your vision for you? And really helping them to think outside of the box and to really dream for themselves. That's huge for people. Huge. One of the things that I know I did when I first started dream building and kind of working on my vision board, and that's a whole nother conversation for another time. But, was I started driving around to nice areas that I would like to live in. In Toronto.
I do that. Just
big
for fun.
houses.
I do that too,
Big houses.
My favorite. I have 3 favorite
multi-million-dollar
neighborhoods.
ones. Yeah, and just drive around and look. And sometimes I stop in front of their house. I'm like, that is nice. I wonder how many bedrooms are in there. Basketball court, like, that's nice.
I'm always thinking, they're
Yes.
like, honey, there's so many guys sitting in
Right?
the
They're from the study. They're looking. Well,
I got
just me.
binoculars. I'm like, no.
Right? Yeah. I went down the window. Sometimes I take a walk out there. Sometimes I want to walk down the street. Right? But I guess my point is, like, really taking some time to envision yourself where you want to be, right? And spend some time in those places that you want to be, right? So you can kind of really get acquainted. What is a neighborhood like? What do the people like to do out here? Do you know anybody there? I remember one time I just went on the window. I was like, hello there. How are you? Yeah. What do you do for a living? Just asking, right? I'd like to know. Because, I mean, their house was like, I don't know, 9 bedrooms. What do you do? Just wondering, right?
Yeah.
Right? What does that kind of income look like? So have those conversations. Find out. What do people do, right? They're a doctor. That was the answer. But, I guess what I'm saying is, familiarize yourself with the things that you want. And don't be afraid to have those conversations. But that dreaming piece is huge. And to your point, some people have never done it. Some people have never seen it. They don't know what that looks like. And they don't have anyone close to them that can represent that for them. So it's so huge, I think, to be able to give people an opportunity to dream for themselves. And what does that look like for them?
And I think they often misconstrue dreaming with goals, right? And I say this to say that goals can feel very big and heavy and overwhelming. Dreaming is okay, right? Like, that is a visualization process, a little bit of a manifestation perhaps, but goals, I can say I'm not always super big on goals. When people say, where do you want to be in 5 to 10 years? Another one of my sayings is, neither God nor corporate America gives a damn about your goal, like what your vision is, right? Because life happens and the best made plans can blow up. And so you can have a vision of where you would like to go, but understand that it may take a different path to get there, and that's okay. It may not get there in 5 years, but that doesn't mean it's not going to get there in 7, right? And so again, understanding that it doesn't have to be this big concrete thing. I think a lot of things that happen is, I think as people, we put these restraints around ourselves. I have to be married and have a big house with 4 bedrooms and 2 kids by 30.
Yeah.
And then that's when you go into this like 29-year-old breakdown because none of it has happened and your birthday is 6 months away. 6 months away, right? Yeah. But you still got there, right?
Right.
You still
wasn't at 22.
Exactly, right? But you still got there. And that's still great. But I think people, have this goal, and instead I think there needs to be a little bit more vision rather than saying, okay, this hard goal. And if goals are for you, then okay, sure. But I've just lived enough life to know that I can plan things out and they can blow up in my face by nothing that I did, right? I've done all the things that I thought I was supposed to do to get there, but yet and still, that wasn't in the cards for me at that time, right? And that's okay.
Yeah, and I think that when I try to set goals, like short-term goals always seem more realistic and feasible than like the 5 years what I want goal. You know what I mean? Keep things realistic, keep things within reach. I just want to say that I've really appreciated you guys coming on here so much. In the past, we've had a lot of people, a few people that have like left corporate behind and pursued other routes of their like other avenues in their life. So it's really interesting to get the perspective for the people that are trying to enter that realm. And I really appreciate you guys coming in, and I appreciate what you're doing for the people out there and the young women that you work with, the young people, right? You guys are open to anybody that needs help, anybody that wants some insight or some consultation from these lovely ladies that are here with tons of business experience and acumen and all of that good stuff that everybody needs. How do they find you?
Oh, so they can find us on social media. If they're on Instagram, we're the Corporate Class, at the Corporate Class LLC. You can also email us at the Corporate Class LLC@gmail.com, or you can go to our website, thecorporateclass.com. So we're a little bit of everywhere. We answer DMs. We might be a little bit slow, but we do check our emails very regularly.
Awesome. Thank you so much, ladies. We really appreciate you.
Yeah, you've been incredible.
Thank you, everybody who tuned in to listen. We appreciate all you guys, too. Make sure you give us a like, comment, share. Go out and follow and like their page, too. The Corporate Class LLC on Instagram.
Like everybody.
Like everybody. It seriously goes such a long way, guys. We really do appreciate it. Thank you all so much. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Peace.